Welcome to the History in Focus channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one. This man was able to have any part of his body pierced by swords, daggers, or thick needles without bleeding, without showing pain, and without suffering any apparent injuries. He was Mirand Dejo, born in 1912 in the Netherlands, called the Incombustible Man. In the 1940s, his performances left crowds incredulous when they saw him pierced by blades from side to side, even through vital organs, while remaining calm, often talking or walking. It was not a stage trick, as doctors and scientists attended his exhibitions, performed X-rays, and confirmed that the objects really pierced his body. These extraordinary feats made him a worldwide sensation, defying logic and medicine. However, in 1948, after swallowing a needle during an act, he suffered internal complications that resulted in his death, tragically ending his career. This man had a second face on the back of his head, able to smile when he cried, and to whisper horrendous things that tormented him day and night. Known as Edward Mordrake, the two-faced man, he was born in England in the 19th century and carried this unwanted second being throughout his life. The additional face did not communicate clearly, but according to reports, it muttered insults and cruel words to Edward, increasing his anguish. He even tried to get rid of it by submerging his head in water, but the other face always seemed to resist, as if refusing to die. Desperate, he sought doctors and surgeons, begging for an operation to remove it, but none accepted, fearing the risks. The man who grew up without arms and legs, known as Snake Man. Prince Randian, born in 1871 in British Guiana, turned his condition into a spectacle. With only his torso, shoulders, and head, he performed daily tasks with incredible skill, could light matches, roll and smoke cigarettes, shave, and even write, all using only his mouth. His dexterity made him one of the greatest attractions of the Barnum and Bailey Circus at the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century, where he was described as agile as a cat and strong as a bull. More than an artist, Randian was an intelligent man, spoke 4 languages, and built a family. He performed in circuses until his death in 1934. Alice Elizabeth Deertie, known as the Wolf Girl, had a rare genetic condition called lanuginous hypertrichosis, which covered her entire body with a dense layer of soft hair. Born on March 14th of 1887 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, from birth her unusual appearance drew looks of astonishment and curiosity, leading her parents to introduce her as a child into the world of sideshows. Quickly, Alice was promoted as the main attraction in traveling exhibitions where crowds were fascinated by her exotic figure. Unlike many performers of the genre, her life off stage was not marked by tragedy or misfortune. She grew up in a loving home, surrounded by care, and with a normal childhood. In her youth, she chose to leave the show business and move to Dallas, where she chose a quiet and private life. The girl with backward-bending knees, also known as the Camel Girl. Ella Harper amazed crowds in the 19th century because of genu recurvatum, a rare condition that caused her legs to bend backward, allowing her to walk on all 4s and move in a way that resembled a camel. At 9 years old, she began performing in curiosity circuses under the direction of businessman W. H. Harris, quickly becoming a prominent attraction in the 1880s. Her way of walking aroused great fascination and attracted large audiences to her shows. Born in 1870 in Tennessee, she lived a few years as a celebrated stage figure. But in 1886, she surprised everyone by leaving her career, investing in studies, and seeking a more private life. Grace McDaniels, known as the Mule-Faced Woman, was born in 1888 and lived with the rare Sturge-Weber syndrome, a condition that causes malformations in blood vessels and, in her case, resulted in a huge birthmark covering much of her face. This feature gave her a very distinct appearance. In the 1930s, Grace joined Harry Lewiston's Circus, where she quickly gained notoriety and became a central attraction, capable of drawing large crowds at each performance. Although promoted for her appearance, Grace was recognized by audiences and fellow performers for her kindness and dedication, which helped her remain a respected figure in the circus world. Her popularity gave her not only financial stability, but also the ability to support and raise her son, Elmer, who accompanied her on tours and shared the traveling circus life. Grace continued performing until the 1950s. The four-legged girl, also known as Myrtle Corbin, was a Texan girl born in 1868 with dipagus, a rare condition caused by a parasitic twin that resulted in a second pair of smaller legs joined to her body. What fascinated doctors and huge audiences was the fact that she had two complete reproductive systems, something extremely unusual. At 13 years old, Myrtle began performing in museums of curiosities and soon became a major success, earning up to $450 per week, an extraordinary amount for that time. Her fame opened doors, and in 1886, she married the physician James Clinton Bicknell. To the surprise of specialists, Myrtle was able to have 5 children, defying all medical expectations of her era and solidifying her name as one of the most notable figures of traveling shows. Daisy and Violet Hilton became known as human wonders, one of the most famous cases of conjoined twins of the 20th century. Joined at the hip and buttocks, they shared the circulatory system, but had separate internal organs, which allowed them great independence of movement despite the physical connection. From an early age, they were exploited by their guardian Mary Hilton, who trained them in music, dance, and performance to turn them into a profitable attraction on stage. Strict control marked their entire childhood and youth until, in 1931, they won freedom after a lawsuit that gave them the right to manage their own careers. From then on, they continued to perform and even acted in films, such as The Cult Freaks from 1932 and Chained for Life in 1951, consolidating their international fame. Born on February 5th of 1908 in Brighton, England, they lived until 1969, when they died together from the Hong Kong flu. The man with lobster hands and feet. Grady Styles Jr., born on June 18th of 1937 in Pittsburgh, suffered from ectrodactyly, a hereditary condition that had marked his family for generations. He joined the Lobster Family show, which attracted crowds and earned up to $80,000 per season. From an early age, he developed impressive strength in his arms and the ability to move with agility, becoming one of the main attractions of the freak circus. However, offstage, his life was surrounded by violence. As an alcoholic, he became an uncontrolled aggressor at home, terrorizing his wife and children. In 1978, he killed his daughter Donna's fiancé on the eve of their wedding, but escaped prison by receiving only probation, under the argument that prisons could not accommodate his physical needs. Feeling untouchable, he continued his abuses until 1993, when he was shot to death by Chris Wyatt, a neighbor hired by his wife Maria Teresa and his son Harry Glenn. Chang and Eng Bunker became known as the conjoined twins and gave rise to the term Siamese twins. Born on May 11th of 1811 in Samut Songkhram, former Siam, present-day Thailand, they were joined at the chest and shared part of the liver, living side by side throughout their lives. In 1829, they moved to the United States and soon became celebrities, surprising audiences with their perfect coordination. They walked, ran, and performed tasks as if they shared the same mind. Never separating, they married the sisters Adelaide and Sarah Yates, with whom they had 21 children, a record number among conjoined twins. With their success, they accumulated wealth, bought land, and even owned slaves before the Civil War. In 1874, Chang died after a stroke, and a few hours later, Eng also passed away. Elie Bowen, remembered as the legless acrobat, was born in 1844 with phocomelia, a rare genetic condition that prevents the complete development of the lower limbs, leaving him with very short legs, popularly called seal limbs. From an early age, he learned to turn this limitation into ability, developing strong and flexible arms that he used not only for movement, but also to perform stunts that surprised with their strength and agility. He entered curiosity shows while still young and soon joined major traveling circuses, where he stood out for a unique acrobatic routine. On stage, he performed fast spins, precise jumps, and controlled falls, always relying only on the power of his arms to sustain his acts. This combination of physical endurance and technical mastery made Bowen one of the most admired attractions. Fanny Mills, known as the Bigfoot Woman because of Milroy disease, a rare form of congenital lymphedema that made her feet reach disproportionate dimensions, measuring up to 20 inches long and 8 inches wide. This unusual feature made her an attraction in 19th century sideshows, where crowds gathered just to see her enormous feet up close. Instead of hiding the condition, Fanny decided to use it to her advantage and built a successful career, ensuring enough income to support herself and her family. Despite her fame, her life was not easy, and in 1899 she died at 39 years old, ending her trajectory prematurely. The man who had only half of his body, Johnny Eck, known as the Half-Boy. Born in 1911 in Baltimore, United States, he came into the world with sacral agenesis, a rare condition that left him without the lower part of his body. What seemed like a limitation became his trademark. Johnny adapted impressively, moving with his hands, running, and even performing acrobatics that amazed crowds. His speed, balance, and control drew attention in public performances. And he even played basketball, breaking all expectations about his condition. Beyond his physical performance, he was also a painter, musician, and filmmaker, showing multiple talents. In 1932, he gained international prominence by playing himself in the controversial film Freaks by Todd Browning, a production that became legendary and cemented his fame. General Tom Thumb, known as the man whose height never exceeded 24 inches. Remembered as the Little Talent, he supposedly stopped growing at only 6 months of age and ended up becoming one of the most famous dwarfs in the history of traveling shows. At 4 years old, he caught the attention of businessman P.T. Barnum, who took him to the American Museum in New York, turning him into a star. Under Barnum's direction, Tom Thumb developed multiple talents. He sang, danced, acted, and imitated historical figures, conquering audiences with charisma and skill. His fame soon surpassed the United States, leading him to perform in Europe, where he even enchanted Queen Victoria and other members of royalty. Able to turn his head backwards in a 180-degree rotation, Martin Lorello, known as the Human Owl, was born in 1885 in Nuremberg, Germany. He impressed audiences by rotating his head and looking directly backwards, without any tricks or illusions. This ability resulted from a rare combination of intense training and the capacity to dislocate the vertebrae of the neck without causing permanent damage. Over the years, he turned this condition into a striking spectacle, performing on the world's largest stages. Under the artistic name Martin Lurel, he shone in the major circuses of the time, including the Ringling Brothers and the famous Ripley's Believe It or Not. His unforgettable performance, marked by the chilling gaze cast backwards, guaranteed immediate applause. Schlitzy, known as the Star of Freaks, was born in 1901 and quickly became one of the most beloved performers in the world of sideshows. He had microcephaly, a condition that resulted in a smaller than average head and brought some cognitive limitations. With a playful manner and innocent presence, he charmed audiences everywhere he went. His acts included funny songs, dances, and jokes, always performed with childlike enthusiasm that immediately generated affection from the public. His career gained new prominence in 1932 when he appeared in the cult film Freaks by Todd Browning, playing himself and reaching even greater fame. Coo Coo. The Bird Girl became known for her unusual appearance that resembled a bird, the result of the rare Seckle syndrome, also called bird-headed dwarfism. The condition gave her a small skull, a hooked nose similar to a beak, and a receding chin, characteristics that drew attention everywhere she performed. On stage, Minnie Woolsey adopted costumes full of feathers and ornaments, danced, and made movements that resembled the flapping of wings. Her high-pitched voice and striking style made her a constant attraction in traveling shows of the early 20th century. In 1932, Minnie reached fame by appearing in the film Freaks, playing herself. The smallest woman in the world, Pauline Musters, born in the Netherlands in 1876, whose height was an incredible 23 inches. This very rare characteristic made her one of the greatest attractions of curiosity shows at the end of the 19th century. At only a few years old, she was already drawing attention and soon began performing on tours through Europe and the United States, where crowds were enchanted by her unusual and captivating stature. Unfortunately, her trajectory was short. In 1895, at only 19 years old, she died in New York from pneumonia and meningitis. Her death caused great commotion among fans who had adopted her as an icon of the show. The man whose skin seemed made of rubber, known as Felix Wearley, the Elastic Man. Born in 1858 in Wisconsin, he drew attention from an early age by being able to pull his skin several inches away from his body as if it were elastic dough, always without showing pain. Doctors and researchers of the time studied his case with fascination, and today it is believed that he had the rare Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, responsible for giving great elasticity to the skin and hyperflexibility to the joints. His unusual body made him a prominent attraction in sideshows, including the Ringling Brothers Circus, where crowds gathered to watch him challenge the limits of anatomy. Frank Lentini, famous as the Three-Legged Man, was one of the most remarkable performers in the world of sideshows. Born in 1889 in Syracuse, Sicily, he came into the world with a rare condition: a third limb, the result of an underdeveloped parasitic twin which had a foot, toes, and even additional genital parts. At 8 years old, he moved with his family to Connecticut and soon entered freak shows. Known for his good humor, he joked that he needed to eat 15% more because of the extra leg. Despite the condition, he showed true athletic ability, playing soccer with the third leg and even jumping rope skillfully. With talent and endurance, Lentini built a career that lasted more than 4 decades on stage. Annie Jones, known as the Bearded Lady, entered history as one of the most famous bearded women in the circus world. From a very early age, she showed signs of hypertrichosis, a rare condition that causes excessive hair growth. Curiously, by the age of 5, she already had a full beard. Her peculiarity caught the attention of businessman P.T. Barnum, who included her in his famous show of curiosities, where she soon became the main attraction and began to draw crowds interested in seeing the bearded woman. Born in 1865 in Virginia, Annie stood out not only for her appearance, but also for her talent and elegant posture, earning respect both on and off stage. Lionel, the lion-faced man, became famous for the rare condition called hypertrichosis, which covered his face and body with a thick layer of hair, forming something similar to a lion's mane. As a child, at 4 years old, he was sold to a German businessman and launched into the world of shows, where he quickly became an attraction. His wild look drew attention, but despite that, Lionel had a calm and polite personality. On stage, he created a complete character, combining acrobatics, demonstrations of strength, and charismatic presence that led him to shine in major companies, including the Barnum and Bailey Circus. Off-stage, he revealed himself as a cultured man, spoke several languages, and was respected for his elegant bearing. Born in 1890 in Poland with the name Stefan Bibrowski, he made history in circuses. The thinnest man in the world, Isaac W. Sprague, remembered in shows as the human skeleton. From 12 years old, he began to lose weight drastically without doctors or family being able to understand the reason. He ate normally, but became increasingly skeletal until his frail appearance became an attraction. In 1865, he joined P.T. Barnum's Circus, where his extremely thin body caught the public's attention, especially when he wore clothes that highlighted his bones. More than just an exhibition, Isaac used the shows to tell his story, creating closeness with spectators. Born in 1841 in East Bridgewater, Massachusetts, he also became a subject of medical study, but his condition remained a mystery. Despite fame on stage, he ended life in hardship and died in 1887. The man who inspired Shrek, Maurice Tillet, known as the French Angel in wrestling rings. At 17 years old, he developed acromegaly, a disorder caused by excess growth hormone that enlarged his skull, jaw, hands, and feet, giving him an unusual appearance. Despite the ogre-like face, Tillet was intellectual, spoke about 10 languages, and wrote poetry. In 1937, he moved to the United States and began a wrestling career, where his strength and overwhelming presence quickly drew attention. He gained international fame, collected titles, and attracted crowds who were impressed by his physique. The spectacular two-headed man. His fame was born from the extremely rare condition known as parasitic twins, the result of the fusion of two embryos still in the mother's womb. The phenomenon caused him to be born with a second partially formed head positioned beside the main one. This unusual feature, which intrigued both doctors and the public, quickly turned him into a sought-after attraction in traveling circuses and oddity fairs. Crowds paid to see him up close, and his image began to circulate in posters and advertisements of the time. Ella and Elvira Salon became known as the Salon Sisters, presented to the public as the Two-Headed Woman Act in the 1880s. They were conjoined twins joined at the torso, sharing part of the body but maintaining independent heads. This rare condition made them one of the most sought-after attractions in circuses and curiosity fairs of the time, arousing fascination wherever they performed. The public was impressed by how they moved together and interacted with each other on stage. Born in Germany, they built a career during the second half of the 19th century and were promoted in posters and postcards as records from the era show. Millie and Christine McCoy, known as the Carolina Twins and also as the Two-Headed Nightingale, were African-American conjoined twins who deeply marked the history of curiosity shows. Born on July 11th of 1851 on a farm in Columbus County, North Carolina, they were the daughters of Jacob and Monamia McCoy, both enslaved. Joined at the base of the spine and positioned at a 90-degree angle to each other, they were sold as babies into the entertainment world, passing through a series of businessmen who exhibited them at fairs and circuses in the United States and Canada. In 1857, they were rescued by an American investor who, along with his wife, gave them formal education. They learned 5 languages, music, singing, and dance, developing a unique style that turned their physical limitations into a show. They shone on European stages, performed in Brighton, met Queen Victoria, and even participated in the Barnum Circus. Their performances included piano duets, vocal harmonies, and a characteristic way of walking that became a dance. Francis O'Connor was born without arms, but from an early age demonstrated incredible ability to adapt to daily life using only his feet. She taught herself to eat, drink, write, sew, and perform household tasks that impressed by their precision. At 15 years old, she joined the Ringling Brothers Circus, accompanied by her mother, who acted as her manager. On stage, her act did not depend on elaborate tricks, but on the display of everyday activities turned into spectacle, eating a steak with cutlery, drinking wine or beer in glasses and mugs, or writing a letter before the audience. The public was fascinated by seeing such simple gestures transformed into extraordinary feats by the way they were performed. She became one of the most remembered attractions of her time, a symbol of how overcoming physical limits could become an essential part of 20th century freak show culture. A circus contortionist in the middle of a maneuver that combined strength and extreme flexibility. Supporting her entire body weight only with her teeth, she performed an act that challenged the limits of balance and physical endurance. This type of presentation was very popular in circuses of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when contortionists were advertised as performers capable of assuming impossible positions for most people. The act impressed not only for the technique, but also for the risk involved, since any mistake could result in injury. A circus performer defied gravity by performing a risky balancing act on chairs stacked on top of a building. Sitting on the top chair, dozens of feet high, he kept his body firm in an unstable and dangerous position where any slip could be fatal. This type of show combined technique and courage, exploring the boundary between art and real risk, and was intended to leave the audience breathless. Height acts, performed without safety equipment, were common in the early 20th century as a promotion strategy for circuses, attracting crowds fascinated by the daring of the performers. More than a trick, it was an exhibition of absolute control over the body and unshakable confidence in the face of danger. The performer Pablo Noel in Hamburg in 1962 starred in one of the most dangerous circus acts, placing his own head inside the mouth of an adult lion. This act, which required nerves of steel and absolute trust in controlling the animal, was seen as the height of domination and courage in acts with big cats. The audience watched in tense silence, torn between fascination and fear that something might go wrong. Performances of this type were common in circuses of the time, using real danger as a central element of attraction. Pablo Noel became remembered as one of the tamers who took risk to the limit, turning the relationship between man and beast into a show of pure suspense. Olga, a fearless lion tamer, faced 3 male lions armed only with a chair and a stick in one of the most dangerous and electrifying circus acts. The simple act of entering the cage already required nerves of steel, but the show went further. She confronted the animals face to face, controlling them with firmness and precision, turning each movement into a duel of tension and authority. The audience watched in absolute silence, torn between fascination and fear that, at any moment, the scene could end in tragedy. In old circuses, this type of act represented the peak of daring, putting the artist directly before the brute force of nature. The impressive art of fire eating, practiced by circus performers throughout the 20th century, was always one of the most dangerous and hypnotizing acts. These women dared to place lit flames inside their mouths, controlling the fire with precision to avoid fatal accidents. Each performance was filled with suspense. The audience held its breath, watching the flame disappear, then erupted in applause when the performer emerged unscathed. Patricia Zerm, known on stage as Lady Patricia, became famous for her skill in one of the most dangerous arts of entertainment, sword swallowing. Few women of the time dared to follow this path, but she earned space and respect by demonstrating uncommon courage and technique. Before beginning her act, she posed before the target shield, preparing the audience for the climax of the show. Buddy Sugru, the legendary Irish strongman, became known for impressive demonstrations of endurance and power. In 1959, at the London Palladium, he lifted singer Bridie Gallagher strapped to a chair using only his teeth, earning applause from a stunned audience. In another performance, he balanced a man sitting in a chair supported only by his head and neck, reinforcing his reputation for superhuman strength. In the curiosity circuit of the 1920s, few acts drew as much attention as the Carlson sisters, nicknamed the Wrestling Fat Girls. They entered the ring in puffy outfits, wore boxing gloves, and faced each other before audiences who paid to watch the show. The atmosphere was comedic, with exaggerated movements and performances that made people laugh as much as they amazed. The presentations took place in circuses and traveling fairs in the United States around 1925, exploring the popular fascination with so-called extraordinary bodies. The public filled the events, attracted by the unusual sight of 2 large women facing each other as boxers and wrestlers. John Jennings, known as the modern Samson, gained notoriety in the early 20th century for a feat of strength that caused astonishment and admiration in all who witnessed it. Born in 1890, he toured circuses and fairs, demonstrating his ability to lift at once 2 adult men seated on large barrels, supported only by the firmness of his torso and the power of his legs. The scene was widely publicized in photographs and promotional posters, reinforcing his image as a symbol of almost superhuman vigor. The public was impressed by the ease with which he maintained the elevated weight, turning a simple act of strength into a spectacle of precision and endurance. This act became his trademark and secured Jennings a place among the most notable strongmen of his generation, remembered to this day as one of the performers who best combined physical discipline with popular entertainment. Mirand was born in Oudh, India, in 1874, and gained international fame in circuses and oddity fairs because of his extremely rare condition of a parasitic twin. From his chest projected part of an undeveloped brother with fully formed arms and legs but without a head or consciousness. This unusual feature made him a striking attraction for 19th century audiences. During his performances, Lelou often wore clothing that highlighted the parasitic twin. The legless woman who marked freak shows, Jeanie Tommini. From birth, she lived without lower limbs, but turned the condition into spectacle by developing great strength in her arms and acrobatic skills that amazed crowds. Her life gained even more prominence when she married Al Tommini, an artist who measured more than 8 feet tall, forming one of the most iconic couples in the circus world due to the contrast between the tiny woman and the giant. Together, they managed their own show, demonstrating that determination and partnership were more important than appearance. Jeanie also became an advocate for other performers, encouraging respect and recognition in the field. Born in 1916, she lived until 82 years old, a long life dedicated to the show. Charmian gained fame at the end of the 19th century as a trapeze artist and strongwoman. While many expected women to play modest roles, Charmian impressed by performing strength and acrobatic training in major circuses. Her most famous act consisted of starting the presentation in a modest outfit and, during the execution of aerial movements on the trapeze, gradually removing pieces of clothing mid-air without losing the precision of her movements. The act was considered scandalous for the period, but attracted crowds fascinated by the mixture of daring and spectacle. Madame Gustica, promoted as a member of the so-called duckbill tribe, became one of the most striking attractions of curiosity shows in the early 20th century. Her fame came from the use of large lip discs that deformed and stretched her mouth, a practice presented to Western audiences as a tribal eccentricity. During her performances, the most anticipated moment was when she lit a pipe and smoked it through the plates. For audiences of the time, she symbolized direct contact with customs considered exotic. 2 young acrobats from the group Les Andreux in an impressive balancing maneuver. The child positioned at the top remained upside down, supported only by the head of her partner, without the help of hands or any other support. This type of act required not only strength and concentration, but also years of continuous training. Austrian acrobats impressed audiences with a number that combined risk and precision. While one pedaled a bicycle and maintained enough firmness to support her partner with only one hand, the second performer, upside down, maintained perfect balance, creating a scene of pure harmony between strength and trust. This daring choreography not only displayed the physical skill of the two, but also the impeccable synchronization built through years of training, enchanting audiences who watched with racing hearts at such a challenge. Members of the Bertram Mills Freak Show underwent a medical examination, a common practice to assess the health conditions of performers who lived on constant tours. On the observation table were the famous giraffe-necked women, marked by the metal rings that elongated their necks and made them one of the greatest attractions of the show. This tradition, inspired by customs of certain cultures, was presented as an exotic curiosity to Western audiences. The Bertram Mills Freak Show famous for bringing together individuals with extraordinary features, combined entertainment with the exploitation of the unusual, and examinations like this also served as part of the control and preparation so that performers could continue appearing before fascinated crowds. The man who inspired Popeye the Sailor, Alfred Highland, the facial contortionist, showed his curious ability during a performance in Glasgow. It was an unusual way in which he managed to manipulate his facial muscles, projecting his chin, closing one eye, and distorting his mouth so extremely that he resembled the famous cartoon sailor. His demonstrations, besides provoking laughter, astonished with the elasticity and facial control he possessed, making him an unusual and unforgettable attraction of the time. Miss Rosina, also called Mermaida or Miss Tiny, was born without arms but turned her condition into a performance. She traveled through Europe displaying the ability to crochet with her feet, a gesture that combined technique, patience, and elegance. In 1938, a circus trainer risked his life by allowing an elephant to place its foot on his head, all to create the act that he presented to the audience. A street performer put his endurance to the test by lying on the ground with a heavy stone positioned on his chest, while two assistants struck it with strong sledgehammer blows to break it. This type of act, mixing real risk with visual spectacle, was popular in fairs and circuses during the 1940s. John Coffey, the skeleton dude, was a character who took the role of a skeletal man beyond simple physical exhibition. Born in 1852 in Piqua, Ohio, he only began to waste away around 30 years old, until he weighed less than 70 pounds, which gave him notoriety at the Chicago Dime Museum as the Ohio Skeleton. Unsatisfied with merely being observed, he decided to create an elegant character, wearing flashy suits, cultivating the image of a ladies' man, and promoting marriage contests in each city he visited, always choosing his own wife, Mary, in the end. Maximo and Barolla became internationally known as the Aztec Children, one of the most publicized attractions of 19th century sideshows. Born with microcephaly in Tehuantepec, El Salvador, they were sold as children to an American promoter named Morris, who created an elaborate hoax to turn them into a spectacle. According to promotional brochures, they were presented as members of an ancient sacred race found in Aztec temples, a story that fascinated the public. To reinforce the staging, they were dressed in clothes decorated with solar symbols and kept voluminous hair, emphasizing the appearance considered exotic. They became a prominent attraction in the United States, were even received at the White House, and toured Europe, where they were examined by naturalist Richard Owen. Although the truth about their origins spread, the myth persisted, and the siblings continued to be celebrated as show phenomena. Even a staged marriage between them was promoted to generate more publicity. Oddity Fat and Skinny Man became known as the Circus Boxers, a duo that exploited the extreme contrast between their bodies to entertain audiences in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. One was promoted as the fattest man in the world, while the other was advertised as the thinnest man in the world, and together they staged boxing matches that mixed humor and exaggeration. The public gathered to watch the caricatured fights, in which the physical imbalance created comical situations that guaranteed laughter and applause. Posters of the time highlighted this improbable duel, reinforcing the popular curiosity for unusual bodies turned into spectacle. Julia Pastrana, the Baboon Woman, was born in 1834 in Mexico and became one of the most emblematic and tragic figures of freak shows. With terminal hypertrichosis, she had her entire body covered by a thick layer of hair, in addition to facial features that accentuated her similarity to animal figures, such as the monkey. From a young age, she was placed in the world of curiosity shows, performing at fairs and circuses in Europe and the United States, attracting crowds who saw her as a mixture of wonder and monstrosity. Despite intense exploitation, Julia was known for her intelligence, her ability to sing and dance, which added layers of talent to her performances. In 1860, she died shortly after giving birth, but not even death ended her exposure. Her body was embalmed and exhibited in different countries for more than a century, making her a symbol of how exploitation could surpass all limits of human dignity. Only in 2013, after decades of controversy, were her remains finally repatriated to Mexico and buried with respect. Jack Earl, born in 1906, became one of the most well-known giants of the 20th century due to acromegalic gigantism, a condition that made him more than 6 feet tall before the age of 10 and nearly 7 feet 6 inches tall in adolescence. Estimates vary between 7 feet 7 inches and 8 feet 6 inches for his final height, always reinforcing the idea that he was one of the tallest men in the world. Despite the difficulties that his stature brought, Earl built an artistic career in Hollywood, appearing in films such as Hansel and Gretel and Jack and the Beanstalk, where his size became an essential part of the plot. A serious fall from scaffolding ended his career in cinema, but not his presence on stage. In 1930, he was invited by Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, who hired him as an attraction. Despite his initial resistance to joining the curiosity circuit, he accepted out of economic need. A strong woman defied all expectations by performing an extraordinary act, supporting on her chest nothing less than an entire piano with a pianist playing upon it. This feat, which combined brute strength and absolute balance, surprised audiences and proved that the idea of power was not exclusive to men. Joseph Merrick, better known as the Elephant Man. Born in 1862 in Leicester, England, he developed extreme deformities of the face, skull, and limbs from an early age, the result of rare diseases still debated by science. Rejected by his family and forced to survive on the streets, he found in the world of shows a way to earn a living, exhibiting himself at fairs and circuses, where he was seen more as a grotesque curiosity than as a human being. Merrick spent the last years of his life at the London hospital, where, treated with dignity, he was able to demonstrate that behind the frightening appearance there was a cultured, kind, and deeply human man. Czech showman Baron Richard Nowak, only 19 years old, became famous for his unusual stature, 21 inches tall and 17 pounds. In one of his most iconic performances, he appeared nestled inside the bell of a tuba, playing trumpet while the instrument was held by a musician from the Hamid Morton Circus. The scene, both curious and theatrical, became a symbol of his career, highlighting not only his small stature, but also the way he used his condition to create creative and memorable acts. Nowak won over entire audiences with his charisma and stage presence. 3 acrobats amazed the audience by forming an apparently impossible structure. The performer at the base, with a fragile appearance, supported with his outstretched arms, 2 companions balanced on each side, creating a scene of strength and balance that defied logic. For those watching, the question remained: was it pure demonstration of physical skill, or was there some hidden trick behind the feat? The mystery was part of the charm of these shows, which always left the audience between admiration and doubt. And you, do you believe it was only strength, or was there trickery involved? Millie Kay was able to swallow the head of a 12-foot python in front of the audience. In Bradford, she even performed the feat at a hotel counter, attracting onlookers who crowded just to witness the scene. The act, which mixed real danger with a provocative touch of humor, became her trademark in pubs and small shows. Presented as the Two-Headed Man, Pascal Pion had on top of his head a large protuberance, probably a cyst or benign tumor that was turned into a spectacle. The public believed that the second face could blink or move, and the curiosity surrounding this appearance guaranteed him fame in freak circuses. Pascal, once a railroad worker in Mexico, saw the show as a chance to support his family and improve his life. On tours across North America, he became a popular attraction, drawing fascinated crowds. Later, he left the stage in the legend of the Two-Headed Man. George and Willie Muse became known as the Ambassadors from Mars, a nickname created when they were kidnapped as children in the late 19th century and taken into the world of sideshows. Two black albino brothers born in Virginia, their identities were hidden by the businessmen who exhibited them, giving them the names Echko and Ako and an invented story that presented them as visitors from another planet. Treated as curiosities, they were forced to perform only as attractions, but it did not take long before they revealed a talent. They were skilled musicians, playing banjo and singing in harmony, winning over the public not only for their peculiar appearance, but for their art. Their fate changed when their mother, Harriet Muse, after years of searching, managed to find them and took the case to court, securing her son's freedom. Even so, they continued performing by choice, turning the initial exploitation into a successful career. Presented as the Wild Men of Borneo, Wino and Plutano were American dwarf brothers, but promoted with a false exotic origin to increase the show's appeal. Although they were born in Ohio, businessmen created the narrative that they came from the distant island of Borneo, reinforcing the image of wild men to attract curiosity. Both had intellectual disabilities but impressed with their physical build and unusual strength, being able to lift heavy weights and even face volunteers from the audience in exhibition matches. This combination of small size and surprising strength turned them into popular figures in circuses and fairs in the United States in the 19th century. The Congress of Freaks of the Ringling Brothers was recorded as one of the largest gatherings of curiosity performers of the early 20th century. In 1924, the group posed for a famous collective portrait that brought together dozens of singular figures, each representing a different facet of the diversity exploited in circuses of the time. The cast included giants who stood out for their unusual height, dwarfs who contrasted visually beside them, contortionists capable of bending their bodies into unbelievable positions, people with rare deformities, and strong men who displayed almost superhuman feats. The performances were structured to highlight both the physical contrast and the skills of each member, fascinating and astounding the crowds who filled the tents. In addition to individual acts, the show often combined different performers on stage, creating numbers that emphasized both difference and complementarity among them. For the public, the Congress of Freaks was a showcase of human wonders. For the artists, it represented both a means of livelihood and an opportunity to turn their singularities into spectacle. Ethel Granger drew worldwide attention by achieving the smallest waist ever recorded, measuring only 13 inches. Obsessed with the practice of tight lacing, she wore corsets constantly, day and night, shaping her body until she reached the extreme silhouette that made her famous. Her image was displayed at events and attractions as a living phenomenon. At the end of the 19th century, the Raja with a second face appeared, an artist who intrigued crowds. It was said that his exotic appearance hid mystical powers capable of seeing beyond the physical world. More than a deformity, his second face became a legend in circuses. Samuel Parks, nicknamed Fearless Frog Boy, stood out for his short stature and atrophied limbs that gave him a peculiar appearance. At 19 years old, he turned his condition into an attraction by creating an unusual act. Seated in a chair, he received visitors who paid admission just to observe him up close. What could have been seen as a limitation became his livelihood. Freda Pushnik, born without arms and without legs, impressed crowds by performing ordinary tasks using only her mouth. She could comb her hair, write letters, and even sew. In the 1930s, her determination and talent made her one of the great stars of Ripley's Believe It or Not. Josephine Joseph, the half-woman, half-man, was a performer who challenged the conventions of her time. Born in 1913, she became known for presenting herself as someone who possessed characteristics of both sexes, something she herself attributed to being a hermaphrodite. Her performance was carefully designed. Her body was visually divided in a clear line, with one side showing defined muscles and male clothing, while the other displayed feminine curves, a tight dress, delicate makeup, and styled hair. This visual construction impressed audiences who saw in her a curious representation of hermaphroditism. Her notoriety took her beyond circus stages, leading her to participate in the classic film Freaks in 1932, where she acted alongside other famous sideshow performers. Sisters Natalia and Aurora Jaramillo became known for their peculiar physical condition. Both had abnormally small heads in proportion to their bodies, something that immediately caught the public's attention. Born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, they began performing in 1908, although little is known about how they entered the entertainment world. On stage, they were announced as fair and circus attractions, presenting acts that combined harmonious duets and synchronized dances. With this combination, Natalia and Aurora became remembered as performers who marked early 20th century freak shows, intriguing audiences both for their unusual condition and for the strength of their performances. The image brings together two performers who symbolize the contrast exploited by Barnum and Bailey Circus in their curiosity shows. On the left is Click Coe, announced as a pygmy, and on the right, George Anger, promoted as a giant, forming a duo that highlighted extreme physical differences to attract the public. This type of presentation was common in The Greatest Show on Earth, as Barnum and Bailey were known, where individuals with rare characteristics were exhibited alongside exotic animals, acrobats, and large-scale numbers. The pairing of Click Coe and Anger was not just a visual resource, but part of a strategy to impress crowds with the idea of diversity and extravagance gathered under the circus tent. In 1903, the two Kashmir giants posed alongside American photographer James Ricalton, becoming a symbol of how figures of unusual stature were celebrated as exotic attractions in the early 20th century. Although at first glance it looks like a photo of a clown beside a lion, the animal in the image is actually another performer in a costume. This type of act was common in circuses of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when visual tricks and disguises were used to hold the audience's attention. Clowns, easily recognized by painted faces, exaggerated gestures, and colorful clothes, played a central role in these performances. They were responsible for balancing the tension created by risky acts with moments of humor and laughter, ensuring that the audience remained engaged from beginning to end. Performances with animals in disguise like this not only produced laughter, but also revealed the creativity of circus productions. Alexander Marshall, remembered as one of the great strongmen of his time, performed an impressive act. He held with his teeth a steel bar with two women suspended from it. This type of presentation was part of circus shows of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when displays of brute strength were treated as the main attraction. Strongmen were promoted as examples of superhuman power and performed feats ranging from lifting enormous weights to supporting people and objects in challenging positions. The Pony Boy drew attention because of a rare congenital condition called anatomical genu, which caused his legs to curve backward. Unable to walk upright or use crutches, he moved supported on all fours in a motion that resembled a pony's trot. Shortly after the Civil War period, he began performing in an amusement park in Texas. The Zebra Man, known as Horus Riddler, was an English artist who transformed his entire body with numerous tattoos. Abandoning the life of an aristocrat, he underwent endless tattoo sessions that covered his skin with black and white stripes, creating the striking figure nicknamed the Great Omi. On stage, he did not need elaborate tricks. He simply displayed the radical transformation that left the audience astonished. The impact came from the boldness of turning himself into a living work of art, the result of pain, discipline, and absolute commitment to his image. A clown from Hannaford's Canadian Circus dressed in his characteristic big pants, a typical costume of circus performances of the early 20th century. This type of exaggerated outfit was part of the comic repertoire, designed to make the audience laugh at first sight. These elements helped reinforce his central role in the shows, easing the tension between risky acts and keeping the audience entertained. Uljana Samjonova, born in Latvia in 1952, became one of the greatest icons of Soviet women's basketball. At 7 feet tall and wearing men's size 21 shoes, she impressed with her physical presence. But her true mark was in her skill, agility, and game intelligence that made her practically unbeatable. By 16 years old, she was already a national star and, during the 1970s and 1980s, she dominated the courts, winning titles and inspiring generations. Recognized for her strength and also her elegance, she was celebrated worldwide as a symbol of excellence in sports.